Hello everyone, welcome to Write It. So first of all, please tell me whether my voice is clearly audible, and I hope the screen is also clearly visible to all of you. Can anyone confirm this? And also tell, should I speak a little bit louder or is it fine to each and every one of you? Okay, can anyone confirm whether it's clear or not? Okay, seems like the voice and the screen is clear. So we'll move forward with respect to our today's lecture. So again, as all of you are already aware that we are doing the financial stability report released by the Reserve Bank of India in the month of December. 31st December they've actually launched it, and one of the first lecture and primarily catering to stable coins we've already done. Okay, now we will shift towards other most important themes of financial stability report. And one more thing, which I wanted to discuss with you, and that's why the thumbnail also was about the fintech sector. Okay, and in this particular theme, especially as you can see over here, that rising concentration and risk profile of fintech lending is the primary theme that we are trying to cater at the initial stage in this lecture. Okay. So basically, as you can understand, that we'll be focusing upon how these fintechs or how these fintech companies, as most of the fintech companies, for example, even though you are aware about IndMoney, you must be aware about IndMoney being utilized to invest in US stocks, isn't it? IndMoney is basically utilized for investing in US stocks, but IndMoney also provides you access to easy loan also. If you check the interface of IndMoney, it also provides you easy access to these loans also. So there are multiple companies in the fintech domain that are providing such kind of access to easy loans. And this is the reason, that's why you see there is much more increase in digital lending being done in the overall economy, है ना? एंड इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर आप देखेंगे, डिजिटल लेंडिंग की वजह से बहुत बार रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया ने अपने मल्टीपल रिपोर्ट्स में बताया कि एनपीएज इंक्रीज हो रहे हैं, और एनपीएज इंक्रीज होने की वजह से इन्होंने डिजिटल लेंडिंग गाइडलाइंस भी निकाली. इन्होंने प्रोवाइडिंग लोन टू डायरेक्ट कंज्यूमर, उस तरीके के लोन्स के रिस्क वेट को बढ़ा दिया जिससे इस तरीके की एक्टिविटी को रिड्यूस किया जा सके. तो what has been the overall impact of all these regulations and all these activities of fintech? That's what we're going to discuss in the financial stability report, this theme. Okay, तो पढ़ते हैं क्या लिखा हुआ है इसमें. For example, the first thing that you see is that over 70% of these fintech loan books consist of unsecured loans. Now imagine how difficult it becomes for any company to secure money if, let's say, the borrowers who took these loans decide that they are right now bankrupt and they will not be able to pay you back. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys. For example, if let's say they have a portfolio of 1 crore loans that they have provided, and within this 1 crore loans, 70 lakh rupees worth of loans are unsecured. That means no collateral is provided to these companies, these fintech companies. They do not have any kind of collateral. For example, if all these borrowers, they decide that they are not able to pay this much amount of loan, so these companies will be at loss of 70 lakh rupees. So imagine how much NPA this will lead to, how much non-performing asset it can become. Okay, so this is what the major problem is right now. Okay, that's first thing. And Now let's understand a little bit about that what exactly is the borrower's profile. Borrower's profile means that all those people, just give me a sec. Yes. So all these people that have taken these loans, what exactly are the key characteristics of these borrowers? If you see, these borrowers belong to age of less than 35 years. So the whole borrower profile is what you can say young. Now that there is no problem in a lot of people being young and taking loans. The problem is that this is the only segment that is much more concerned with respect to economic cycles, or this is the only segment that is much more sensitive to economic cycles. Now think about a case scenario. If let's say a recession comes, then obviously there will be a lot more layoffs, which anyways you see happening right now. Okay, then increased layoffs will reduce income. And if the income is reduced, how do you think these people will pay back this loan? At the end, they will declare bankruptcy. I'm not able to pay these loans because I do not have any kind of money. And this bankruptcy and them not being able to pay such kind of loans will lead to what? Will lead to increased amount of NPA in the fintech lending space. Now think about a case scenario when the Reserve Bank of India is much more concerned about ensuring that the NPAs of the overall banking sector are reduced. This will be the one such sector that will be increasing the overall NPA of the overall banking sector. I hope you're getting this point, isn't it? So that is what the most concerning thing about lending that is happening in the fintech sector, and the borrowers who are much more young and much more sensitive to these economic cycles, and that's why we are all concerned about it. That is why they are saying that this demography concentration increases sensitivity to income shocks and economic cycles, because the moment economy goes bad, your such kind of NPA will also increase. So that's why RBI wants you to be at least be aware about such kind of things, isn't it? And why do you think that the fintech companies wanted to go this way, wanted to provide various kinds of loans to this gentry only? Because they wanted to do what? They wanted to achieve growth. Now growth, obviously you can do either by, let's say, in collaboration with various banking institutions, but that again will come at a cost. You have to pay commission. And then even if you also get agents, then also you have to pay agents commissions. Then what do? These fintech companies, they try to automate the process. But how do you automate the underwriting process? When we talk about underwriting process, that means we are talking about loan processing process. In order to provide loan to a particular person, you have to see particular metrics. आप देखोगे ना कि उसका क्रेडिट स्कोर क्या है, उसकी पहले की हिस्ट्री क्या है, आप 50 चीज़ें देखोगे, उसकी इनकम है कि नहीं है, ये सारी चीज़ें देखोगे कि नहीं देखोगे. But do you really think when Ind Money is paying you some amount or giving you some amount as a loan, are Ind Money is Ind Money capable of finding all these things? So in order to automate, what exactly these people will do? In order to automate, they will do what? They will do, only see your credit score, and they will provide you loan on the basis of that. Now the problem in this is, now think about a case scenario. All of you think about this case scenario. If let's say due to some reason, there is this guy, there is this person called A. This person has taken loan from HDFC Bank. And he has been paying installments very carefully and very dearly. So that's why his credit score is also good. Okay, but at this particular juncture, he got laid off. And if at this particular juncture, when his credit score is good, if this guy who is laid off, he asks for loan from any other fintech company, what do you think? Will he get loan or not? At this juncture, will he get loan or not? What do you guys think? Definitely he will get a loan. He will get a loan. Okay, but you do not understand that later on, neither he will be able to repay HDFC Bank, neither will he be able to repay Fintech company. And that's when there will be an increase in NPA. And that's why this whole idea of just getting this credit score and giving loan is a bad idea. And this is why RBI is concerning, or at least telling to the overall these companies that you should at least be comprehensive with respect to assessing the risk of whatever you are doing. Okay, so I hope it is clear. And in order to obviously achieve growth, in order to compete with various other institutions like banks, NBFCs, they are doing such kind of activities, and that's why you see there has been a huge growth in the overall lending space, fintech lending space. That fintech loan portfolio grew by 36.1%. If let's say 1 CR is the loan portfolio, next year it became 1.36. So imagine, in order to achieve such kind of growth, you have to deploy a lot more funds, and you can only deploy a lot more funds by automating various kinds of activities. And what are exactly primary risks associated by Reserve Bank of India? Reserve Bank of India is saying that the major problem is small ticket unsecured loans show higher impairment compared to other loan categories. If you see small ticket unsecured loans, basically these are 1 lakh rupees loan without collateral. Such kind of loans are showcasing higher impairment. Higher impairment basically means all those borrowers slipping into mention accounts, or let's say much more towards NPA. Their overall rating is getting degraded. Okay, all of these people are not able to repay on time. And why do you think such kind of situation exists when it is such a small amount that they have to repay? Because these are the borrowers that have multiple unsecured loans from 5 or more lenders. What do these people do? ये इतने शाणे होते हैं, ये लोग क्या करते हैं? पहले जाएंगे HDFC बैंक के पास, उनसे बोलेंगे कि भैया हमको छोटा सा लोन दे दो. HDFC बैंक भी बोलेगी ठीक है ले लो, कोई दिक्कत थोड़े. तो HDFC बैंक से इन्होंने ले लिया 1 लाख रुपए. फिर ICICI के पास भी चले गए, उनसे भी बोल दिया 1 लाख रुपए दे दो. ओके, फिर येस बैंक के पास चले गए, उनको भी बोल दिया 1 लाख रुपए दे दो. फिर इंड मनी के पास गए, इंड मनी को भी बोला कि देखिए इनसे तो ले ही लिया, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, 1 लाख रुपए दे दो. अब इनमें से किसी को नहीं पता कि ये बंदा 500 से लोन ले रखा है. Even though the system will showcase that only small ticket size loans are creating problem, but the system also is telling you it is only this only guy that is taking all these kinds of loans, isn't it? So that's what the problem is, है ना. इसे यही सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है जिसको हमको अंडरस्टैंड करके चलना है. And lastly, compared to traditional NBFCs, fintechs display greater vulnerability in unsecured segment. मतलब NBFCs तो चलो एक बार को देख भी लें unsecured segment को, क्योंकि उनके थोड़े distribution ज़्यादा है, उनके routes ज़्यादा है. But fintechs do not have such kind of capability. वो तो एक बैंगलोर में अपना ऑफिस लेके पूरे इंडिया में डिजिटल सॉफ्टवेयर्स के थ्रू एक्सेस करना चाहते हैं सारी चीज़ें, है ना. तो उनके पास तो कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है कि हर जगह हर किसी से पैसा निकलवा लें. पैसा निकलवाने जाएंगे और ज़्यादा खर्चा हो जाएगा, क्योंकि 1 लाख रुपए का पैसा है, उसको निकलवाने के लिए आप भेजोगे बंदों को, है ना, उससे और खर्चा आएगा आपका. तो दिस इज व्हाट द प्रॉब्लम इन द फिनटेक स्पेस इज ऑल अबाउट, है ना. आई होप यू गाइज अंडरस्टैंड ईच एंड एवरीथिंग दैट आई हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट विद रिस्पेक्ट टू फिनटेक सेक्टर. इस पर्टिकुलर एरिया में किसी को कोई प्रॉब्लम, प्लीज आस्क. शिवांगी, आज ये वाले सेशन के बाद आई विल अपलोड द PDF. यस, यू कैन गेट द PDF, डू नॉट वरी, आई विल अपलोड द PDF. All clear? Wonderful. Chalo. Now let's move on to the next particular theme in the financial stability report, which is rising external vulnerabilities and funding risks in NBFCs. So let's understand what exactly is happening over here. Okay, so one more thing, that for instance, if you see that NBFCs, we are also concerned about their overall funding primarily. Ki NBFCs for their overall operations, what do you think, what are the multiple ways via which they fund their operations? Do you guys have any idea? What are the different ways via which NBFCs take money and then they deploy this money to different people in the form of loans? What are the different ways of funding? See, one such way obviously is that they take loans from bank. Isn't it? Another way can be that they take money, or they, raise money from the market. And it can be in the form of debentures. Okay. It can be in the form of long-term bonds as well. And then obviously, it can be in the form of term deposits as well. But what do you guys think about external commercial borrowing? Is this a viable way or not? What do you guys think? Is this a viable way? External commercial borrowings. Yes, Abhishek, correct. Issue debentures. See, if you see, external commercial borrowings are basically loan only, but they are taking such kind of loan from, anybody or any institution that is located outside India. Okay. So this is basically borrowing from institutions outside India. Okay. Now, if I ask you guys, what do you think? Can you tell me one positive associated with external commercial borrowing and one negative associated with external commercial borrowing? What do you guys think? What can be the positive? Why would anyone go outside India and want to take loan from there? Why not just कि अपने ही country में loan ले लेते हैं, क्या दिक्कत है, बाहर क्यों जाना? So what could be the various positives that actually attract these NBFCs to take money from there? What do you guys think? See, one of the most important, attraction, would you say, is basically less cost. Yes. Yes, Abhishek, correct. Cheaper loans. Okay. Let's say if they take loan from the bank may charge to them, let's say 7% interest rate. But if they take money from any external institution, they'll be able to get this loan at, let's say, 5% or 5.5%. So that would be a much more, positive thing for them. Yes, lower interest rate. But what about the negative? What kind of risk are they exposing themselves to? What kind of risk? Yes, correct. So they are exposing themselves to currency risks. Isn't it? So what can they do in order to hedge themselves against these currency risks? Or don't you think even Reserve Bank of India must also be concerned about the fact that all these NBFCs, if they go and take external commercial borrowing, it will obviously can lead to later on problem for them because of depreciation of Indian rupees. So what exactly Reserve Bank of India also suggests, or what exactly these companies do in order to protect themselves? What do they do is they try to hedge their risk by, let's say, purchasing a forward or purchasing a future of Indian or Indian rupee or dollar, or they can also engage in currency swap arrangements. So these are various methodologies via which they'll be able to preserve the value of their loan. So that is most important. Okay. So I wanted to explain to you all these fundamental aspects before we go towards what exactly is happening in the NBFC sector, because then you will be able to understand this much better. Okay, chalo, let's understand what exactly is happening in the overall sector. So as you can see that RBI has highlighted that NBFCs are increasingly relying on foreign currency borrowings. So the contribution of external commercial borrowings in their overall funding is increasing. And just like you guys said, because it has helped them contain funding cost, because these are much more cheap, they are having lower interest rate, and this has basically helped them reduce their funding cost. And whenever their funding costs are reduced, it helps them increase their profitability. Isn't it? Especially when you are comparing this with high domestic interest rate environment. And see, first thing is ki anyways the interest rates in the domestic economy is much more higher. But then you guys also remember that the Reserve Bank of India, especially with respect to bank loans to NBFCs, what did Reserve Bank of India do with respect to such kind of loans risk weight? Did it increase or decrease? Tell me. What did Reserve Bank of India do for such kind of bank loans to NBFCs? Did it increase the risk weight or reduce the risk weight? Yes, शिवांगी, करेक्ट. सो बेसिकली रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया इनिशियली उन्होंने क्या करके 100% से उसको 125% कर दिया. बट लेटर ऑन व्हेन रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया रियलाइज्ड कि इस तरीके की एक्टिविटी से नाउ दीज एनबीएफसीज आर गोइंग टुवर्ड्स एक्सटर्नल कमर्शियल बोरोइंग्स. तो यू गाइज ऑल्सो रिमेंबर लास्ट ईयर उन्होंने 125 से दोबारा इसको 100% कर दिया था. हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू गाइज रिमेंबर दिस? है ना. तो एक तो होता है कि इंटरेस्ट रेट एनवायरनमेंट आप उसके चक्कर में महंगा पड़ रहा है आपको, फिर आपको आरबीआई ने भी ऐसी एक्टिविटी कर दी जिसकी वजह से आपको बैंक लोन्स मिलना थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाएगा या एटलीस्ट थोड़े और कॉस्टली हो जाएंगे, है ना. इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ दीज काइंड्स ऑफ सिचुएशन दैट यू सी एनबीएफसीज आर मच मोर गोइंग टुवर्ड्स फॉरेन करेंसी बोरोइंग्स. And obviously, if they are getting foreign currency borrowings, then they are making themselves vulnerable to external shocks. Just like how recently rupee also got decimated, isn't it? So such kind of situation exists. But then if you see foreign currency exposure and hedging, around 86% of foreign currency borrowings are hedged. Okay, which Reserve Bank of India saying is will give partial protection. Because then hedge, even if you hedge, you are actually protecting themselves, protecting yourself from exchange rate, fluctuations. But hedging cost, cost of buying or purchasing such kind of instruments, that is also causing a reduced, profitability for you. So these are the major concerns that Reserve Bank of India mentioned, particularly in case of NBFCs. Isn't it? फिर अगर हम ओवरऑल फंडिंग सोर्सेज की बात करें, विच वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड ओवर हियर दैट दीज आर मल्टीपल फंडिंग सोर्सेज. तो इफ यू सी बैंक बोरोइंग्स रिमेन द लार्जेस्ट फंडिंग सोर्स बट हैज डिक्लाइंड फ्रॉम 41.2 to 32.3%. बैंक बोरोइंग्स बेसिकली bank loans to NBFCs. And can you guys tell me what could be the major reason because of which this bank borrowing to NBFCs declined from 41.2% to 32.3%? क्या हो सकता है? अभी हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया था. क्या सबसे बड़ा रीजन हो सकता है जिसकी वजह से ये बैंक बोरोइंग्स रिड्यूस हो गई? What do you guys think? Yes, it basically because RBI increased risk weights. अब whenever RBI increase risk weight, तो अगर बैंक को कोई भी लोन एनबीएफसी को देना है और इसका रिस्क वेट 125% कर दिया है ना, तो आपको मान लीजिए 1 करोड़ का लोन दिया है, उसको 1.25 करोड़ लिखना पड़ेगा। अगर यही अमाउंट ज़्यादा हो गया तो बैंक को जो 9% का टीयर 1 प्लस टीयर 2 कैपिटल रखना पड़ता है, उसकी वैल्यू भी तो ज़्यादा आ जाएगी। तो इट बिकम मच मोर कॉस्टली फॉर दीज बैंक्स टू प्रोवाइड लोन्स टू दीज एनबीएफसीज। सो दैट्स वाई NBFCs started reducing using these are, started or let's say stopped taking loans from banks. So that's why we see such kind of decline. Are you able to understand each and everything that is happening? और आप लोग आई होप समझ भी पा रहे होगे कि किस तरीके से RBI के कोई भी डायरेक्शंस जब भी आते हैं तो उसका इम्पैक्ट आपको देखने को मिलता है। तो ऑलवेज बी अवेयर अबाउट द बिग पिक्चर। छोटी मोटी चीज़ें तो एनीवेज हम लोग समझ जाते हैं, बट बिग पिक्चर अगर आपको अच्छे से पता है देन यू कैन मेक और डू इन्फॉर्म्ड डिस्कशंस विद द इंटरव्यू पैनल, स्पेशली फॉर बिकॉज तभी तो अंडरस्टैंडिंग बैठेगी, इजंट इट। चलिए, एंड दिस वॉज द वन ऑफ द मेजर कॉम्पोनेंट, क्योंकि सबसे लार्जेस्ट कॉम्पोनेंट भी था। तो अदर फंडिंग कॉम्पोनेंट्स आर डिबेंचर्स, इंटर कॉर्पोरेट बोरोइंग्स, दैट मीन्स NBFC बोरोइंग फ्रॉम अनदर NBFC, फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन बोरोइंग्स, ठीक है, कमर्शियल पेपर एंड गवर्नमेंट बोरोइंग्स। ये बेसिकली आपका वो है ऑर्डर। तो यू जस्ट रिमेंबर कि टॉप 3 एक बार याद करके चलिएगा, दैट वुड बी मोर देन सफिशिएंट फॉर द एग्जाम, है ना, एंड फॉर एनी काइंड ऑफ स्टेजेस। तो फर्स्ट इज बैंक बोरोइंग्स, फिर आपके बाकी सारे आ गए। Okay, now let's talk about asset quality trends in the NBFCs. Asset quality basically all those kinds of loans that NBFC have provided to various people. The gross NPA ratio of NBFCs have improved overall. That means gross NPA has reduced. However, rising fresh slippages and increasing write-off indicate underlying stress. Even though if you see, let's say NBFC का अगर आप overall GNPA देखोगे तो वो तो decline कर रहा है, ठीक है। तो अगर उसको देख के आपको लगेगा कि ओवरऑल NBFC में सिचुएशन इज वेरी मच ऑल राइट, बट इफ यू सी द एग्जिस्टिंग पोर्टफोलियो, तो मेजर लोन्स आर स्लिपिंग। तो लेट्स से इफ इट इज इन स्पेशल मेंशन अकाउंट 0, तो वो स्लिप होके स्पेशल मेंशन अकाउंट 1 पे जा चुका है। वेरियस काइंड्स ऑफ लोन्स आर, लेट्स से अगर सब स्टैंडर्ड एसेट है तो वो लेट्स से लॉस एसेट पे जा चुका है। So such kind of slippages are happening with respect to underlying portfolio. So even though overall picture rosy lag rahi hai, but underlying stress still exists, and majority of stress is visible in microfinance and unsecured lending segments. Be very careful of this unsecured lending segment. Primarily, as you must also be aware about that various NBFCs have also collaborated with fintech companies to deploy such kind of loans. Because this fintech company provides them software, NBFC provide distribution and capital. It is this way NBFC provides such kind of loans through fintechs. And these kinds of loans, we've already understood why it is creating problems for these financial institutions, isn't it? So that's the problem. चलिए, तो asset quality हम लोग समझ गए। अब समझते हैं credit growth trends. तो फिनटेक के लोन पोर्टफोलियो के बेसिस पे आपने क्या समझा? फिनटेक के लोन पोर्टफोलियो के बेसिस पे यू अंडरस्टूड दैट इवन दो देयर एग्जिस्टिंग स्ट्रेस आर देयर, बट स्ट्रेस के बावजूद भी द लोन पोर्टफोलियो इज ग्रोइंग, एंड इफ यू सी दैट द क्रेडिट ग्रोथ ट्रेंड्स इवन इन NBFC हैज ऑल्सो रिमेन्ड स्ट्रॉन्ग डिस्पाइट टाइटर फाइनेंशियल कंडीशंस, ठीक है। तो रिटेल क्रेडिट रिमेन्स द टॉप ग्रोथ ड्राइवर। तो लोन पोर्टफोलियो ऑफ ईच एंड एवरी type of institution is increasing. Be very clear about it. तो this tells you what कि credit offtake अपनी इकोनॉमी में अच्छा खासा चल रहा है ना, बट मेजॉरिटी चल रहा है रिटेल सेगमेंट में वो छोटे छोटे स्मॉल वैल्यू लोन्स, बट दी स्मॉल वैल्यू लोन्स आर नॉट हेल्पिंग द इकोनॉमी इंक्रीज इट्स प्रोडक्टिव कैपेबिलिटी। तो क्रेडिट ऑफटेक हो रहा है, उस क्रेडिट ऑफटेक से केवल कंजम्पशन बढ़ रहा है, वो नहीं बढ़ रहा, आपकी प्रोडक्टिव कैपेबिलिटीज नहीं बढ़ रही। So have this macro picture in mind. And later on, if you see credit costs and profitability, the credit costs have declined significantly from 6.3% to 4.4%, and it has supported profitability. And why do you think credit costs have reduced एनबीएफसी में अभी हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया था क्या रीजन है जिसकी वजह से क्रेडिट कॉस्ट रिड्यूस हो चुका है. क्रेडिट कॉस्ट इज बेसिकली हाउ मच मनी बेसिकली यू आर पेइंग टू टेक कैपिटल. ये आपका कम हो गया. और ये क्यों कम हुआ है? व्हाट इज द रीजन? Yes, definitely. The reason is कि the NBFCs have shifted away from bank borrowings to external commercial borrowings. External commercial borrowings उनको सस्ता पड़ रहा है, इसी की वजह से आपका overall funding cost कम हो गया. I hope it is clear. तो till here, does anybody have any issue? Please tell. No issue? Chalo, wonderful. Now let's move on. And instead of insurance sector, उससे पहले let's do this steepening yield curve, है ना? And emerging pressures in the sovereign bond market. तो first things first, let's understand what exactly is yield curve. आप में से कितने लोगों ने yield curve पढ़ रखा है पहले? How many of you have studied about yield curve? तो बताओ शिवांगी, यील्ड कर्व क्या होता है? कूपन रेट बाय विच चेंजेस बिकॉज ऑफ चेंजेस इन मेच्योरिटी ऑफ बॉन्ड प्राइसेस. ठीक ठीक ठीक. हाँ, तो चलो यील्ड कर्व समझने के लिए आपको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि ये यील्ड का कॉन्सेप्ट आता कहाँ से है. ठीक है, इफ यू आर अवेयर अबाउट बॉन्ड, बॉन्ड इज बेसिकली a contract, okay, in which somebody who is issuing the bond is basically telling you कि if you buy this bond you will get this much amount of money at this much amount of date, let's say after 5 years, and you will also get interest rate, further interest also, so let's say 6%. Okay, so you give, and these bonds are basically, this is known as face value. Okay, and then you have price. Price is basically dependent upon demand and supply. And if you clearly see, usually these kinds of bonds are issued at discount. So for example, if this is 1000 rupees bond, it will be issued at, let's say, 950. Issue price. Then you have face value of 1000 rupees. Okay, and at the end, what will you get? You will get 1000 rupees. So let's say, how much benefit did you get? 1000 rupees minus 950, 50 rupees return you get at the end in form of capital, and then every year 6% of 1000 rupees you get. So you get 60 rupees into, let's say, 5 times 300 rupees. The total return you get is 350. Okay. So yield is basically the return that we are talking about. In long-term bonds, we get, let's say, this much amount of yield, for example, 10% yield for a long-term bond of 30 years. Then you get, for a 5-year bond, a yield of 7%. For short-term bonds, like let's say for 1 year, will you get 15% return? What do you guys think? For a short-term bond, what kind of yield would you get, or what kind of returns can you expect? See, when we talk about short term, usually in short term, the yield is much more lower. You do not get much more money, because time has a, money has time value also. So usually the 1 year bond will have 6% interest rate only. So this is the curve. If we try to join or make a yield curve, so we realize that this is the normal yield curve, in which the short term bonds have lower interest rate, the long term bonds have higher interest rate. This is what the yield curve is. Now this yield curve can have different shapes. This yield curve, can have like this. So this is what we call steeper yield curve. ज़्यादा ऊंचाई होगी ना इसकी. So this is what we call steeper yield curve. In steeper yield curve, the short term interest rates are much more lower and the long term are much more higher. Then you also have yield curves like this. This is what we call flat yield curve, in which short term and long term both are equal only. Nobody is expecting any kind of growth. Nobody is expecting any kind of. So think about it like a Japanese economy. अभी पैसा ले लो उतना ही कमाओगे, बाद में पैसा रख लो तब भी उतना ही कमाओगे, कोई ज़्यादा आपको benefit मिलने नहीं वाला. Okay, and then you also have yield curves like this as well. मतलब not this much deep. This is what we call inverse yield curve. And why do you think that such kind of inverse yield curve can be there? Matlab, this is the only thing that is telling you that in the later stages nobody is expecting any kind of growth. So that's why long-term bonds does not have that much kind of attraction, and nobody wants such kind of bonds. So when do you think such kind of bonds are there? Sorry, इसमें उल्टा है, not like that. When the short-term interest rates are much more higher as compared to long-term interest rates or long-term yield, ठीक है? So we have these two types of, or these multiple types of yield curves. I hope you understand. Yield curve में किसी को कोई दिक्कत, please tell. Does anybody have any issue with respect to yield curve? Because once you understand this, then I'll be able to explain to you what exactly is happening in the economy and what financial stability report is basically telling you about yield curve. Okay, so if you see, Reserve Bank of India is categorically mentioning a sharp increase in the net issuance of central and state government securities during current financial year. As you guys are already aware that the state governments was also, showcasing or issuing, Reserve Bank of India on behalf of these state governments were issuing state development loans. Okay, so state development loans basically telling you that states are borrowing from market at a very rapid pace. So what does this do? This increases supply of government bonds in the market. Whenever there is a supply increase of any kind of government bonds, तो what do you think will happen to its price? अगर कोई चीज़ की availability बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाती है, तो what happens to the price? What do you guys think? When any commodities availability in the market increases, what happens to the price? Anyone? Price decreases. Okay, and especially with respect to bond, what kind of relationship do we have with respect to yield and price? We have inverse relationship. So whenever price decreases, yield increases. Yes, correct. So that's why they are also saying it is also adding pressure on long-term yields. So long-term yields will naturally be increasing. So let's see this case scenario. We've already understood yield curve. Let's make a yield curve on the basis of what is happening in the economy as said by Reserve Bank of India. So basically supply of those state governments as well as central government bonds are increasing. So price are decreasing, yield is increasing. So the yield for long term is basically increasing. So previously if the yield was like here, now the yield is over here. Okay. So for long term it is acting like this. Previously it was like this. And what is happening for the short term yield? If you see over here, they are again mentioning about that there is a weakening demand from long-term institutional investors. This we will study later on, but let's first understand why the yield curve is steepening. If you see, short-term interest rates are declining because of monetary easing by RBI, surplus systemic liquidity. Okay, when the money is available in a much more larger manner, obviously the short-term yield will declining. RBI is also reducing repo rate, basically ensuring that the weighted average call rate also reduces, making sure that previously if short-term interest rates were like this, now it becomes like this. So previous yield curve was this. Now because of, let's say, supply of government bonds increase and monetary policy easing, this yield curve has become a lot more steeper. So I hope you guys understood the idea that whenever you read about steeper yield curve, so you already हमेशा बस एक बार सोचना कि steeper yield curve मतलब short term interest rate और गिर जाए और long term interest rate और बढ़ जाए. तो ये yield curve था थोड़ा सा और increase कर गया. ठीक है, I hope it is clear. Now let's understand that what is happening with respect to demand or problem in the sovereign bond market. Both of the things were happening simultaneously. तभी issue आ रहा था sovereign bond market में yield curve तभी तो और ज़्यादा steep हो रहा था because of the supply of increasing supply of these government bonds. And if you clearly see over here that apart from the supply increase, that supply to anyways it is increasing as we've studied in the previous point, but then demand from the key long-term investors are also declining. So it is acting like a double whammy. तो दो जगह से दिक्कत, एक तो सप्लाई बढ़ा रहे हैं, ऊपर से डिमांड गिर रहा है वो अलग. तो नेचुरल सी बात है, इट विल कीप ऑन इंक्रीजिंग द इंटरेस्ट रेट और द यील्ड. डिमांड इज लो, देन प्राइस विल डिक्लाइन, देन सप्लाई इज मोर, देन द प्राइस विल फर्दर डिक्लाइन, isn't it? And naturally on the basis of bond yield relationship, then yield will also, price yield relationship, yield will also continuously much more increase. So insurance companies and pension funds are these basically long-term institutional investors. What exactly these people are doing? If you see pension funds, their holding of government bonds increased in absolute terms, but share of government bonds within high quality liquid assets declined from 53 to 50, and they are replacing it with equity to get much more return. Because these pension funds also want what? आप लोगों से पेंशन का जो प्रीमियम उठा लेते हैं, तो वो सब जाता कहाँ है? वो सब एक पूल में जाता है. वो सारा वो पूल में बेसिकली इन्वेस्टर्स बैठे होते हैं. वो क्या करते हैं? इन्वेस्टमेंट मैनेजर्स बैठे होते हैं. वो इस पूल को बढ़ाने की कोशिश करते हैं. अब वो सारा पैसा गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड में नहीं डालना चाहते. वो चाहते हैं कि थोड़ा सा इक्विटी में जाए, थोड़ा पैसा ज़्यादा बढ़े. सो दिस इज द रीजन on the basis of which you see such kind of reduced demand of these government bonds by these pension funds, which are also known as long-term institutional investors. Okay. Similarly, even insurance companies are doing the same thing, reduced exposure to government securities from 61.7% to 59.7%. But be very clear, इसमें मैं आपको एक चीज़ और बताना चाहता हूँ कि पेंशन फंड और इंश्योरेंस कंपनी में आप थोड़ा सा डिस्टिंक्शन देखेंगे कि पेंशन फंड वाले गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटी को वेटेज कितना देते हैं? 50% के आसपास. और इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज को देख लो, 60% तक गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज में इन्वेस्ट किए जा रही है. तो व्हाट वुड यू से, आई एम आस्किंग टू ईच एंड एवरी वन ऑफ यू, व्हाट वुड यू से, किस पर्टिकुलर इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर का पैसा ज़्यादा होने की और रिटर्न ज़्यादा होने की आपको उम्मीद है? पेंशन फंड और इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज? व्हाट डू यू थिंक ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दीज टू मेट्रिक्स? What do you guys think? आपको क्या लगता है किसका पैसा बनना ज्यादा लाजमी है? See, if you see, basically these are what? These are risk-free investments. तो पेंशन फंड का बनना ज़्यादा है ना, एज कम्पेयर टू इंश्योरेंस फंड्स. करेक्ट, पेंशन फंड्स का ज़्यादा है. Pension funds will earn much more return as compared to insurance companies. And when we will study about the insurance companies and insurance sector as a whole in the financial stability report only, this is the problem that we will see again. कि ये लोग सबसे ज़्यादा गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज़ में इन्वेस्ट कर देते हैं, इससे इनका पैसा नहीं बढ़ रहा. तो वो एक इशू सबसे ज़्यादा इनको देखने को मिल रहा है. ओके. एंड इफ यू सी the investment behavior which is changing of market participants in these government securities, what exactly is happening? Banks increased holdings of state government securities but moderated government securities purchase. Insurance and pension funds also reduced long duration exposure. This is the change that is happening. अपना exposure ये लोग थोड़ा थोड़ा कम कर रहे हैं as compared to their previous pattern. And what about foreign portfolio investor? Foreign portfolio investment into Indian government bonds remains strong. And why? Because India's inclusion in global bond index, for example, Morgan Stanley, emerging markets index, उसमें इंडिया के गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड आने के फायदे रहते हैं. ठीक है. और हमारे यील्ड एज कम्पेयर टू अदर एडवांस इकोनॉमीज ज़्यादा है. तो दैट्स वाई अलॉट मोर दीज फॉरेन पोर्टफोलियो इन्वेस्टर्स वांट टू पुट मनी इनटू इंडिया. And despite this, despite all those investment, the rupee weakened due to deteriorating terms of trade, higher US tariff and volatility in global capital flows. So basically they are just telling you कि even though आपको लग रहा है कि the investment into government bonds in India from foreign investors is increasing, but उससे ज़्यादा वो लोग पैसा equity market से निकाल ले गए. तो इससे जो benefit आना था इंडियन रुपी को वो नहीं आ पाया. उसके अलावा फिर वी ऑल्सो आर हैविंग नॉट अ गुड ट्रेड डील विद द अमेरिका. तो अमेरिका के साथ ट्रेड डील हो ही नहीं पा रही है. उसकी वजह से अनसर्टेनिटी एग्जिस्ट इन द ओवरऑल इंडियन मार्केट. ओके. एंड बिकॉज ऑल सच काइंड ऑफ एक्सटर्नल जियोपॉलिटिकल इवेंट्स दैट आर हैपनिंग ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड राइट नाउ, विच यू आर सीइंग इन वेनेजुएला, रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर, तो तो उसकी वजह से आपकी जो ओवरऑल मार्केट की सर्टेनिटी वाला जो फैक्टर है वो नहीं रहता है. And that is why we see volatility in multiple markets all over the world. So this is what the major problem is all about right now. So till here, does anybody have any issue? Please ask. बताइए, does anybody have any issue? If you guys do not have any issue, अभी हमारे फिर दो थीम्स रह जाएंगे. 2-3 थीम्स है मेरे ख्याल से. फर्स्ट इज इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर. किसी को कोई सवाल पूछना तो पूछ लो. ओके whether related to this lecture or related to any other thing, you can ask me. Otherwise, I'll wind up the session. नेक्स्ट क्लास में पूछोगे. ठीक है, चलो ओके. चलो, thank you guys for joining. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you. Bye bye. चलो.